Good evening, welcome to the June 12th, 2024 meeting of CB11's Land Use, Landmarks, and Planning Committee. My name is Jason Villanueva, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is being called to order at 6:34 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by the district manager, Angel Mustain, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I will recognize you. As it relates to the chat function, that is for Zoom, should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand. Remember, is given the floor to speak, I will identify you, and you can mute yourself so that you can speak. The order of precedence will be committee members, then board members, then public members, and then public constituents. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and be waiting to be recognized. We will now take attendance by roll call. Roll number. You guys are present.
Adam Bria, Kenneth Crouch, Jessica Elliott, Jessica Morris, Milsa Orama,
Present.
Beverly Pavon,
Present.
Vincent Torres, Jason Villanueva,
Present.
Candy Vasquez. Yeah.
Excellent. Adoption of the agenda. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed at the time by the board office and posted online. There is no objection to adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to adopt the agenda, you may raise your hand. Actually, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Adoption of meeting minutes. The minutes from our last meeting were distributed to committee members ahead of time by the board office. Please put them up in there. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand, please. No objections, the minutes from the last committee meeting are adopted. They assume we available on the CB11 website. Announcements.
CB11's Land Use, Landmarks and Planning Committee and the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, will host an affordable housing finance training on June 27th at 6:30. The event will be held at El Museo del Barrio, 1230 Fifth Avenue, on 100th Street. 105th Street.
It's a voluntarily mandatory meeting. My committee members, I would love to see you there. There's been a lot of concern expressed about the AMI. Any person that doesn't come to that meeting and then talks AMI, we will be having a conversation on the floor of the board in September. So housing has a lot of work in that respect, and that those energies and efforts should be allocated towards that committee, so that way we can bottle down on meeting. That said, also just as a point of information for you all, there were $500 for our committee has been allocated to that event. It's our event, was sponsored an event as the chair. I authorized it, but as my committee, I would love to respect the opinion and get a formal vote on it at the end of the day on whole business. All right, so that takes care of announcements. I gave you the informational update. You guys have any other informational updates or announcements? Excellent. Really, I don't know. Discussions and presentation. So we'll have a presentation 101. It's an informational session. As you guys know, we've been for the last 2 years having the conversation about preservation. We've been focused a lot of land use. We make decisions on landmarks, but we're not really involved in the discussion of preservation the way that our constituents are. So I kind of wanted, I've asked for this in some retrospect, but I gotta say, honestly, this just came to us, and now I'll turn over the floor to Diego Bayo, who's from the Historic District Council.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give this presentation. Brandon Tolbert, who is the Executive Director of the Historic Districts Council, is going to be giving the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Frampton Tolbert, Executive Director of Historic Districts Council. I'm joined by Diego Raballo, our Public Relations Specialist. And yes, we are going around to various community boards and doing a brief presentation on what are landmarks and what is historic preservation in New York. So we will try and go through this fairly quickly. This may be, fairly elementary for some people, but we're trying to give a baseline knowing the different community board members have different experience with landmarks and the process of that. So I'm going to see, I don't know, as a panelist, if I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, it's not, hold on a second. So, sorry, I'm also looking at my notes here. So just a brief introduction to Historic Districts Council. We are this citywide advocate for New York's historically, architecturally, and culturally significant neighborhoods. We support preservation efforts in all 5 boroughs and work with more than 500 neighborhood organizations on landmarking and preservation issues. So what is historic preservation? This is something that we get asked a lot because it does encompass more than landmarking, which is what we're going to focus on this evening. We really talk with a lot of community groups about what is important about our history and what parts of our past can we preserve for our future. And in New York City, we practice preservation through grassroots advocacy, protecting areas of cultural and architectural significance, and landmarks designation. NHDC specifically offers support to community organizations through these processes: the landmarks designation process, the National Register process, cultural resource surveys, street co-namings, walking tours, press coverage. I'm going to focus primarily tonight on the landmarks process. So what is the landmarks designation process? In New York City, the Landmarks Preservation Commission is a city agency responsible for identifying and designating and regulating buildings as it says here, individual buildings, districts, interiors, or scenic areas which are more than 30 years old and which have been deemed an important part of the city's heritage. And these are protected by the city agency. When a site is landmarked, the LPC must approve in advance any alteration, reconstruction, demolition, or new construction affecting the designated site. And we'll talk more about that because I know some of these things come to the community board. A lot of people ask what landmark designation does not do. It does not control use of what the building is used for. So landmarks cannot control that. It does not prevent new construction. We see alterations and additions and even new buildings in historic districts quite regularly at the Landmarks Preservation Commission. It does not increase rent. It does not discourage affordable housing. It does not require you to restore your building. You only go to the Landmarks Commission when you want to do work on your building. Landmarks does not require you to do restoration work. And it doesn't maintain specific businesses, which is why they generally do not designate buildings based on the legacy businesses that are in those buildings, because landmarks cannot require those businesses to remain there. So if the community, and we've worked with many community organizations like Landmark East Harlem, which I know has been done a lot of really great work in the community board, identifying sites of significance, and we're working with other community boards around the city to do survey work to community members to understand what sites they would like to see preserved. So when something is designated, the first formal step is that the Landmarks Commission generally receives a request for evaluation, which is a form on their website, which is fairly basic, and anybody can submit this. It does not have to be the property owner, but it includes, why is this building important, basic information about the building, and clear photos of the site or district. Landmarks Commission receives hundreds of requests for evaluation every year, and reviews those according to their internal priorities across the city. If the Landmarks Commission deems a site worthy of moving forward with landmarking, they calendar the site, which is the formal process of putting it on their calendar for a future public hearing. And the 11 commissioners at the Landmarks Commission vote on that. If it moves forward, they have a public hearing where any and all members of the public can testify on whether or not the site, district, interior landmark, interior or scenic landmark should be officially designated. And then in a future hearing, the commissioners vote on the designation. Once a building or site is designated, landmark protection begins immediately. The City Planning Commission has 60 days to prepare an advisory report. The City Council has 120 days from the time of the LPC filing to approve or modify the designation. A majority vote is required. The mayor can veto the council vote, and the council can override the mayoral veto within 10 days. We very, very rarely do we see the City Planning Commission, the City Council, or the mayor take action against the Landmarks Commission on any designation. So the regulation process, how are these sites regulated? The commission cannot make building owners do work on their building and only reviews work when changes are proposed. All LPC regulations and how to apply for a permit are found online. The LPC has been doing a lot of work to streamline their application process for property owners. And most permits are approved at the staff level and are usually issued within 30 days. What you need a permit for to do work is any kind of exterior work, whether that's restoration, alteration, reconstruction, demolition, or new construction. Really any project that affects the exterior envelope of the building, even on parts of the building that are not visible from the street. And some minor interior work if it's going to affect exterior elements to the building, or the site is an individual interior landmark, of which there are fairly few in New York. An interior landmark must be accessible to the public. So it can't be, you know, a privately owned space like a apartment building lobby that is not accessible to the public, cannot be an interior landmark. What you don't need a permit for from landmarks is basic things like replacing window glass, painting the building the same color it is, or doing routine maintenance. If you do need to apply to do work at the Landmarks Commission, you fill out an application on their website and you work closely with a staff member to see that process through. As I said, you know, LPC reviews and approves hundreds of permits every year. Most of them take about 20 to 90 days. But for major work, for a new building, an addition, a rooftop addition, a rear yard addition, really major work to a building that does not follow the rules of the commission, those applications generally go to the full commission for a public hearing. And at those public hearings, anyone can respond to those applications. The community board generally comments on those applications. The LPC will not consider those full applications at the commission until they've heard from the community board. So in those, HCC is the only citywide nonprofit organization that reviews all major applications, and we comment on about half of those. So I know I'm going pretty quickly, but I want to get through this and open the floor to questions from committee members if you all have questions about things that we have or have not covered. So other ways of preserving important sites in New York, the National Register. So the state and national register is a, you know, as it says, a state and federal designation process where sites are put on the National Register for their significance to the city and state and national history. Very different than the New York City landmarks process. The National Register does not prevent demolition or alteration of a building. If your building is on the National Register, you can still demolish that property. It's largely honorific. It does provide some level of protection to the building if public money is being used for a project, but otherwise it's largely honorific. And then if you're on the state national register, property owners can be eligible for tax credits for commercial and income producing properties for those property owners to do work on their building and get those credits back on their taxes, get that money directly back. If you do want to put something on the National Register, you submit a form to the New York State Historic Preservation Office. This is again something I know that that Landmark East Harlem and Ascendant have been doing a lot of work getting properties and districts listed on the National Register, which is really fantastic and can be a very time-consuming process to do all the survey work and research and documentation needed for this process. The state reviews those materials and they are voted on by the state board and then voted on at the federal level to be on the National Register. Financial incentives and assistance for historic properties. As I mentioned, there's the Federal Historic Preservation Tax Credit Program for income producing properties. This is for, as it explains, income producing properties, commercial properties, and can also apply to rental properties and helps building owners do work as long as that work is approved by the State Historic Preservation Office. And I'm happy to provide more information. It's a pretty technical program, but happy to provide more information to the community board about the details of that. And then there's the homeownership rehabilitation tax credit, similar. This is 20% of rehabilitation expenses associated with the repair, maintenance, and upgrade to historic homes. The program covers 20% of rehab costs up to $50,000 per year. The New York Landmarks Conservancy, some of you may have heard of them. They are a sister nonprofit to Historic Districts Council, and they provide grants and loans, including matching grant program for sacred sites and religious properties to do maintenance and undertake survey work and studies on religious buildings and restoration work on religious buildings. And then here I'm listing a few other programs that both New York City and New York State offer for historic properties. And then other initiatives that HDC undertakes. So we have a program called 6 to Celebrate, where we choose 6 priority neighborhoods each year to work with on their preservation priorities. East Harlem has been one of those neighborhoods, and we've worked with East Harlem on preservation priorities. And each of those neighborhoods also, we create walking tour guidebooks as part of that work. The Vulnerable Building Initiative, these are sites that are already landmark designated that we're concerned about their demolition through neglect or their demolition due to unsafe construction, both either at the site or nearby. This has been happening with increased frequency in New York, and we've lost a few buildings in Harlem. And I know one of the buildings we recently were concerned about was the Harlem Courthouse building in East Harlem, which has been under scaffolding and kind of not in the best of shape for years. We understand that that project is going to go forward and there's money allocated towards that restoration, but we're creating a database of all the buildings in New York that are landmark designated that we are concerned about the state of them, so that we can advocate for their restoration or their or them being salvaged in some way so that they do not have to be demolished due to unsafe conditions. We've also been doing programming around using historic preservation to adapt and maintain affordable housing. So doing case studies and tours of places where historic, both designated and non-designated buildings have been rehabilitated for affordable and supportive housing. And lastly, commenting, I know this is something that you are very involved in, commenting on City of Yes, all the components of City of Yes, and how that impacts both designated landmarks and non-designated landmarks. And we're happy to share with your committee our findings on City of Yes for housing opportunity and how those may impact historic neighborhoods. Our comments should be available in about a week or so. And I know that's something that you are actively reviewing right now. So with that, that's basically, the basic information that I have to share this evening. I know it went fairly quickly, but I am happy to answer questions by the committee, by committee members, or questions about anything that I didn't raise in my brief presentation.
You did an outstanding job. Thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
Beverly.
Yes, thank you so very much for the presentation. My question is, do you have anything, emergencies come up, like if a building is getting ready to be demolished or something like that, and it's an emergency for it to be put as a landmark, how would y'all handle that?
You mean it's already a landmark, or you mean the
No, it's
process to get it landmarked to save it?
Right, a landmark to save it.
Yeah, I mean, we do get those kinds of requests quite a bit. I think we're trying to be more proactive and work with both neighborhood organizations and someone like Community Board 11 to identify a list of places that you all would like to see as preservation priorities before we get to the point where a demolition permit may be issued or the building might be in danger. We've just found in many cases, if a demolition permit is pulled, even if the building is landmarked, the demolition permit trumps the designation. So we've lost buildings where property owners have pulled demolition permits to stop the building from being landmarked. So it's something that we're working with, and Diego might be able to talk a little bit about this. I believe at CB12 in Manhattan, we did a survey with their landmarks committee, both in English and Spanish, to ask community members what buildings they would and districts they would like to see landmarked. And we got back about 80 responses to that, and we could share that survey with your committee if that was something that you all would want to send out through your list and see what kind of places in the neighborhood people find to be important and worth preserving.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I definitely can attest that. We're gonna be interested in doing that come September. Jessica, always.
Hi, nice to see you here. Thanks for coming to the board. I don't know if I'm on the owl or not, but your outreach, I missed the beginning, your outreach is intended just to raise awareness and advocate for the importance of proactive preservation activities in neighborhoods like East Harlem, correct?
Sorry, yeah, I can't hear quite what everybody in the room, but if you can repeat that.
Thank you. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So, I missed the beginning of your presentation. I apologize. But thanks for being here. And my question is really 2 points. One, just to clarify that your intention here is to just kind of introduce various processes and benefits of engaging in preservation to the community board to be more proactive and feel empowered to be more proactive with regard to actively engaging preservation activities in a neighborhood like East Harlem. That's one question. The second question is HDC. You are not you're a citywide kind of advocacy umbrella for local bodies. So you are still a resource for neighborhoods like ours, or how can you beyond what you've just mentioned, you're available as a resource if we have questions. Is that correct?
Correct. We're a nonprofit organization. We are not affiliated with New York City government, and in fact see ourselves as more of a watchdog to the Landmarks Preservation Commission, reviewing their decisions and testifying at the Landmarks Commission quite regularly on both changes to historic buildings as well as proposals for new landmarks. Yes, we are happy to work with you. And we know really when talking with community boards across the city, some community districts may only have a small handful of landmarks, which I think CB11 has, about a dozen individual landmarks compared to a board like the board representing Greenwich Village, which has a huge number of landmarks and is seeing these applications at every single meeting. So board members may be less familiar on reviewing proposals and what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And we're always happy to advise or receive your resolution so we know how the community is feeling about proposals to landmark buildings.
Okay, and then just one additional question. I also sit on the Economic Development and Culture Committee, where there's a big push by one of our members to recognize the value of the historic theaters that exist in East Harlem and their the density of those theaters in East Harlem that are all in some way in need of reinvestment, preservation, and maintenance. So, you know, is there, I think there's a feasibility study out there. There's some legislation about cultural districts through NISCA, which would unlock funding to be able to do some of the capital investments that these smaller organizations need. Do you know of any resources that would be good to connect to relative to early stage feasibility studies with regard to investing in existing assets, not at a landmark level necessarily, not at a national register level, but as a sort of even adaptive reuse, but also, you know, necessary longstanding upgrades to make sure that the assets we do have that are beautiful are accessible and able to be enjoyed by community members and invite others to East Harlem to enjoy the culture here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say two things about that. I would love to introduce you to the Landmarks Conservancy, which is much more of a bricks and mortar organization for their understanding on, you know, putting together those kind of sometimes very complex packages of funding to support capital improvements for historic properties, knowing that's a big undertaking. We're very supportive of this idea of cultural districts. It's not something New York has in place, but we've had experts come and speak to us from other cities like San Francisco that have designated cultural districts that allow for the kind of regulation and the improvement of the areas of cultural significance, not necessarily architectural, but really, you know, with deep cultural significance, and would love to see something like that in New York, a different type of preservation that's less about, you know, the aesthetics and more about the underlying important culture existing in that area.
We're there. Thank you.
Jessica Elliott?
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned at the end there that you had, that Historic Districts Council was working towards some sort of statement as it relates to the city of guests for housing opportunity. Is that correct? That was gonna be my question, what the organization's opinions were on the, for example, the landmarks transfer of development rights, and if you know of any, you know, great success stories or not great unsuccessful stories of that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely trying to keep our focus on how it impacts historic neighborhoods across the city, and transfer of development rights is one of the pieces that we're really focused on. I would say we haven't officially decided, but I would say we are obviously supportive of the expansion of TDRs to support individual landmarks and allowing them to transfer those rights further. I think, and I don't know if you know how much you all have discussed this already. I think our real concern is removal of community boards and elected officials from the public process. You know, we understand from city planning, they're saying, well, these haven't happened that often because of full ULURPs and organizations and owners not being able to go for full ULURPs. But, you know, I still think we oppose the idea of removing community boards from this. For example, if there's not a bulk, you know, a change in bulk use, that a building near you can suddenly have all these development rights and you don't know how they got them because all it went to was city planning for a certificate. And I think we would oppose, and I'd say several pieces of City of Yes for housing opportunity. We would oppose the removal of community input through public hearings and through community board processes. And, you know, as city planning is saying they want to do this to streamline the process, we oppose the removal of public input, but support the idea of transfer development rights for landmarks to further sites within their area.
Thank you very much.
I'm trying to think if there's anything, sorry, if there's anything else in there that is really of note for CB11. I mean, we're obviously very supportive of the commercial or residential conversion idea and making that, you know, more widely being able to be used. I don't know how many, sites in CB11 would be able to take advantage of that. Because I don't know that there are that many commercial sites, large commercial buildings in CB11 that would be good fits to convert to residential, but that's something we have been pushing for more and more incentives to make that happen, especially in Midtown and other areas.
Any other questions? Excellent. Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it. We look forward to working with you in September.
Great, and we'll send you our City of Yes comments very within the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Excellent. So moving on to the next informational update, presentation, project update, mandatory inclusionary housing, application for Harassas Development Project from Chris Cirillo, December.
Hey everyone, Chris is unable to attend tonight, so I'll be filling in his place. Derek Gaskill, Senior Project Manager from Ascendant.
Welcome.
Thanks, it's good to see y'all. And joining me is my colleague Steve. There he is.
How you doing? Steve Williams, MDG Project Manager.
Cool, and y'all can see the presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Great, awesome. So yeah, we're here just giving a project update about Las Oasis. Y'all were so kind to approve the ULURP in 2021. Can't believe it's been that long. And we've given a ton of projects, so I'll kind of run through it, and then we'll talk about MIH. So Las Oasis is 4 scattered sites throughout East Harlem. The addresses are on the left there, and the biggest one is on Park Avenue, which we'll be talking about tonight. Timeline of the project is that the ULURP was completed in fall of 2021. We received a LIHTC, Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Award, in the summer of 2023, and we intend to start construction summer 2024. A little bit of a moving target for us, but we're optimistic. This is a completely affordable project. It'll bring 78 affordable rental apartments to the neighborhood and 10,000 square feet of community facility. Our funding sources, so since we've been to y'all, we've been working on financing. It's a mix of 9% tax credits, HPD neighborhood construction program funding, Resolution A funding or capital funding, which was awarded from the borough president and W Speaker Ayala. And we also received our Section 8 vouchers, so we'll be able to use those for the tenants as well. So the building of the 4 buildings that we're going to be talking about tonight is the biggest one, which is the Park Avenue building. This building's 47 apartments. It's going to be a 2-elevator building, and it has the community facility in it on floors 1 through 3. This is actually a new rendering. Y'all haven't seen that yet. So if you look, it's similar to the last one that we showed y'all, but if you look at the bottom, you'll see that there's 3 floors of community facility. There's going to be laundry rooms and landscaped terrace. And this is the proposed affordability mix for the entire project. So again, 100% affordable project, but at varying income mixes. And I'm gonna pass it over to Steve to talk about MIH.
Derek, can you control the screen
Yep.
for me? Yeah, the MIH, this project is under the mandatory inclusionary housing rules. Through the grant, it was designated through the ULURP that we went through, and through that it was designated option 1 with 25% of the residential floor area had to be 60% or below the weighted average. At least 10% of them had to be 40% AMI, and we couldn't have more than 3 income bands within the income ranges, and none of the bands could be over 130% AMI. So how that looks, you can go to the next one. So how that looks for the project, when you look at the the math behind how we were able to achieve the option one. We have 16 units that will be MIH units that will remain affordable in perpetuity. 4 studios, 4 one-bedrooms, and 8 two-bedrooms in the site for a total of 16 units. On the left in the yellow are the actual units and the apartment numbers, the square footages, and the AMIs that we will be addressing with the 16 units. Like I said, it ranges from 40% AMI up to 80% AMI. And when you look at the floor area ratio, the total floor area ratio is 34,977. And the MIH makes up 36%. We have 9,000 square feet. The weighted average of the units that were designated comes out to a 56.2% of the AMI. You can go to the next. Now with the MIH program, the way this looks for this particular building, like I said, is 4 studios, 25% of the units of the MIH units. The one bedrooms make up 25% and 2 bedrooms make up 50%. And you can see the non MIH units, we have 10 studios, 22 one bedrooms, and 15 two bedrooms. And there's 1 super unit in the building, which brings us to the 47 units in the Park Avenue site. Now for the distribution, the units are spread throughout the project from the 4th floor up to the 13th floor. They're distributed vertically equally as possible with the unit distribution, and go to the next site. And also on each floor, there's a maximum of 50% on each floor, and that we hit the 50% because we have the supers unit on the floor that really takes us to the 50%. But most of the floors are no more than 40%. You can go to the next. When you're looking at the comparison of the MIH units to the non-MIH units, like I said, we have the 4 that's designated for the MIH opposed to the 6 studios that are non, and they're the identical square footage. 2 of the MIH units will be receiving PBVs. Go to the one bedrooms. And with the one bedroom units, there's 4 one bedroom MIH, and the square footage, average square footage of the non-MIH and the MIH are pretty much the same, and they we will be utilizing 3 of the PBVs for the one bedrooms. Can you go to the last? And the last type of unit that we have for the PBVs is the 2 bedroom, and in this category we have 8 MIH units opposed to 6 non-MIH units. Like I said before, these the MIH units stay affordable in perpetuity, so they'll remain at that income level. And as you can see, the average MIH bedroom size is 82 square feet opposed to 72 square feet of the non-MIH units. And again, one of the PBVs will be utilized for one of the non-MIH units. And that gives you a quick overview of how the MIH program will be implemented within the Park Avenue site, creating the 16 units affordable in perpetuity. Are there any questions you'd like to talk about this project?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to start, can you tell us what your workforce job development efforts are at? Second to that, MWBE.
Yeah, we're working with
any local hiring initiative.
Yeah, there's a local hiring initiative. I know previous presentations, we said that we would reach back to the community board with those efforts. We do have a 25% minority business participation, which amounts to about 10 million of the total development that will be going to minority businesses. We will be participating in the NYC Hire and working with the community board to make you aware of the efforts as they move forward.
Any other questions? Jessica Morris?
Just to clarify, the 16 MIH units, there's 47 units total. How are the other, but it's 100% affordable building. What is the mechanism of affordability for the other, can't do my math, number of units?
If we can you go back to the proposed affordability unit mix there? Yeah, this gives you a breakdown of the affordability mix in the overall project.
Formerly, okay, formerly, so we have formerly homeless at 8, low income at 8, so there are other just kind of standard Housing Connect lottery units at different income bands.
Yes.
That fall outside of mandatory inclusionary housing within the development.
Yeah, and we're utilizing income averaging in this project to make sure that the overall project meets the LIHTC tax credit below 60% or below. So as a blend of all the units across all 4 sites, everything will be affordable for LIHTC units.
Yeah, I guess to sort of clarify on that. So the other apartments are through our LIHTC allocation, our tax credit allocation, which is up to 30 years of affordability, and then it can be with all tax credits. And then it can be reevaluated and has the option to be made market rate. Ascendant has no intention of doing that. But that's a discussion for 30 years down the line. The MIH apartments, though, regardless of what happens in 30 years, stay permanently in perpetuity affordable. So even if at that 30 years, if the building were to go market rate, which again is not our intent, then those units would still stay in that MIH range.
Sorry, just to clarify, follow-up question, it's taken as a cluster. All of the averages, not building by building. I understand there's a real intentional distribution and consideration for the community composition. It seems like, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but it seemed very intentional. So just wanting to confirm that the averages are always across all 4 buildings.
Is across the full project. Yes, you're correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Torres?
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, guys. So I believe MDG may be handling more of the construction aspect of this development. They've been utilized on other projects that I've seen of such throughout other areas of the city. Do you have a range of wages that are gonna be obtained for the construction workers on this project?
Actually, on this is new construction, and we are procuring a third-party contractor from the Latier Construction, which is in the area. But they will be the GC on the project, where MDG is just acting in a developer role, partner role with Ascendant.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jack, at your next update, you'll present us with Latier, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The next update in the next 3 to 6 months, you'll present us with Latier, correct?
Yeah, we can get any information you need for procurement and job opportunities. We'll definitely have all that information for you.
Bro, all right, thank you for the job enforcement. My question, one other question. It's been a hot topic in the district. about preference, right? And ensuring, right? And yes, we're aware of the law, yes, we're aware of the rules, but we're also aware of activist efforts, right? So we want to ensure our partner, Sending, is making a conscious effort to ensure that any persons or any opportunities that present themselves for an apartment within this complex is, you know, again, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you the technical way how to sell it, but to ensure that there is people within the district that have opportunities to be, located in these apartments.
Yeah, absolutely. We understand and will absolutely comply with the law. That being said, we're based in East Harlem, and our partners are in East Harlem, so we do our best efforts to reach out to the community and make sure that folks know when these buildings come online, that they can apply.
I'm sorry, Candy had her hand raised, then Nilsa, then Beverly, then Amy. Candy, you have the floor. Okay. Nilsa.
Hi, thanks. Jessica asked the question about because I saw that on your area medium income, you're only serving the 40% AMI. And I'm only just wondering if you did that, if that is being designed because of the senior building that you have next door. That's gonna be adjacent to the development. But we do have some people from the community that aren't making at 20 and 30%. So Jessica did ask that question, and so I just wanted to know why they're not including also. I know you have MIH, but we have people with 20% as well, and from what I'm seeing is being overlooked. If there's anything that can be worked out to at least make it happen, at least for these individuals that would also like to, have the opportunity to have housing options as well.
Yeah, one of the things that we did do is to provide, to seek PBVs to be able to address deeper affordability. So there are 8 PVVs that will be assigned to this project.
I'm sorry, you said only 8?
That's what we were able to secure. It's 8.
Okay, but that's gonna be automatic because you're giving it for the formerly homeless, right? But what about the individuals that are applying on the Housing Connect for the lottery that they're not in shelter or anything, they're independently couch surfing or just applying for an apartment?
Yeah, so I think so we have just over 15% of the entire project is 30% below AMI. But for the mandatory inclusionary housing ones, they're at
40%.
different, yeah, they start at 40%.
And range up to 80, yeah.
And Steve, that goes back to the option.
The option 1 and meeting that criteria for having the weighted average, and it was something that was designated back in the approval of the ULURP, that the option 1 was the designated option that was agreed upon to move forward with.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify with regard to Candy's question, up to 30% AMI you have. So that means somebody making, within the 20% or 10% lower. So the extremely low income covers 0 to 30%. Is that correct?
Yes, it can cover that income band. And if the individual doesn't come with any other type of subsidy, they should be able to fall within that. Nobody would, their max income couldn't be over 30%. And they wouldn't be paying more than 30% of their income based on those income ranges.
Nilsa.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. Just to clarify, all these units will be going through New York City Housing Connect, correct?
Correct.
So they are lotteries, so, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I do New York City Housing Connect. So I just wanted to, make it understood that that's an application process, and so, while we may advocate, the fact of the matter is that those units have a specialized process to get, selected, and there is a specialized way to make sure that you're eligible. So no matter that, we would love to see more units. The lottery is quite stringent. A quick question in terms of the formerly homeless, those are, just to clarify, those are the units that would be less than 30%, and those are, automatic, the PBVs? Or are you anticipating that other income bands may also get assistance, let's say the 30% for the project-based voucher, the Section 8?
Yeah, let me make
I
sure.
don't know if you can answer, I don't know if you can answer that question, because for instance, if someone applies and depending on their income, they may be part of the 50%, but they may be getting Section 8 personally, right?
Yeah, they
So-
can, if they have the personal, if they have a PBV that they're traveling with, that
Right.
they'll be able to qualify for units in like the 40-50% with that PBV. The 8 PBVs that we're getting that are assigned that are going to be project based are coming from the NYCHA PAL. So we're yeah,
And
so
they just opened up their waiting list for 200,000 more
Yeah.
applications that they accepted. So the reason I brought that up is because although you have 8 project-based Section 8, the building may eventually have more people in there
that's
that
true.
have supports through the Section 8 program. So I just wanted to bring that out.
Yeah, just for example, for one project that we are leasing up now in another community, we are finding that people are coming with their own PVVs and other subsidies that are allowing them to get into units. So we have more subsidized, deeply subsidized units than originally was underwritten for in terms of opportunities for people for deeper affordability. So there's an opportunity for that in this project also. One of the things that I would like to bring up, I know you work for the Housing Connect. One of the things that we try to do is do a lot of outreach prior to, and not only just for this particular project, but for all the other projects that are coming up in the area, because you have to be in the Project Connect system and keep your information relevant so that you can snap up opportunities, even when there's vacancies in some of these opportunities that were missed in the past. There's an opportunity to be on the list to get in on the when they're getting new tenants in. So it's something that we should be pushing, and I would advocate from the community board level to just have that as a way to just let residents know to stay in that Housing Connect, because these opportunities are definitely going to come back around. Not if you don't get into the initial lease up, when they're being released, they still have to go through the system. So
Right. And through the affordable housing applications process, when someone gets selected for eligibility, they can mark down that they're in the process of applying for a Section 8 application, or that they're thinking about it, so that there's an understanding that for that unit, they may eventually be subsidized monies coming in if they get selected. So I just wanted to thank you for your presentation, and just to clarify that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that information.
Next.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. My question is regarding the formerly homeless, the 8 units that you had, and your MIH overview. You picked option 1, and it said no more than 3 income bands. The homeless formerly homeless is not part of that income band?
No, there's three MIH bands that we have in this particular project. It's the 30% AMI, 40% AMI, and 80% AMI that we have designated for the MIH units. Those are the bands that were selected and are utilized to meet that criteria.
And my follow-up question, why was 60% AMI omitted from this? For at least
What?
for 1761 building.
Yeah, it was what the underwriting for the project and the financing of the project. We needed to be able to have those higher incomes, but we had them set to be offset by the lower income AMI incomes to average out to about 56% to allow us to utilize another subsidy, the low income housing tax credit, to fund all of the units, so that we were able to bring more subsidy to make keep the units affordable and be able to develop these 78 units across the 4 projects.
All right,
So
thanks. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just saying it was a way to try to maximize all the resources that we had to do affordable housing at these particular sites, these NCP sites they've been lingering for a long time in the community, and we've been, trying to figure out ways to make them 100% affordable and moving forward. And this was the mechanism that was designated.
For another question, I know this project has been going on since 2021. And you're hopefully gonna be able to start construction this summer. Hopefully, with the AMIs going up dramatically each year, how does that play in when the project is finished? And if people who's applying for it or needs it now will still be able to afford it at completion?
Well, the way the AMI, like you said, it has been going up very high over the last couple of years. The way the lottery system is set up, the AMI stayed the same. They're what that AMI is at the time of completion, the units will still stay at that AMI. And I at this point, if we look at what the past trends are, that the median income has gone up, but the percentage of that AMI is still going to stay the same. I don't know if there's going to be any other mechanisms in the future to mitigate that, but it's once it's set, we move forward with that funding source unless something changes with the program and the term sheets that we're given from HPD.
Thank you.
Angel?
Hi, Derek. You mentioned before I think you said 3 floors of community facility space, if I'm not mistaken. What's the intended use of that community facility space?
Sure, we don't have, we're still in talks and trying to make everything fit. But we are in talks with Opus Dance Theater, and they would have their offices and some performance space and class space on the 3 floors.
Thanks, Derek.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Torres?
Just for some additional clarification, thank you. Thank you for my question. And so that group you just mentioned, are they locally based here in East Harlem? For the CFU space?
They're currently
Yeah.
based in Brooklyn. They're scattered all over New York, and they're looking for a place to consolidate for a home space and a creative flagship. So no, the short answer is no, they're not locally based, but they provide services all over New York. They have their offices currently in Brooklyn.
Yeah, and then just one last question. On the AMI band rates, when you say gets locked in as of closing or gets locked in as ULIP application approval, or what's the date that it gets locked in?
It was locked in from the NCP, the term sheets that we, when we went in for the project, they had certain term sheets of how the project could be underwritten. And so this went through ULIP with these particular AMI bands and the MIH setup. So they were, when that approval was given, it pretty much locked that in. We would have to go back through to change anything, you know, and HPD would have to change their term sheets for the NCP program.
Thank you.
There's a recommendation, look at local nonprofits for that CFU as well. I don't think the dance company needs all 3 floors, but I think that's a conversation we can continue to have. Hearing that and seeing no other questions, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate you guys coming for the update. I do recommend that you share some of the discussion that was had today with the housing committee, so they can properly advocate for some of these concerns that are being brought up by land use matters.
Great. Thanks so much for having us, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Next, item number number C, committee discussion of both the land use application as from, I'm not gonna say it all. Third Avenue Transit Easement Certification. The applicant, 2289 JD LLC, seeks a joint certification by MTA, New York City Transit, and City Planning Commission as to whether a transit easement is required for a property to the MTA as indicated via determination letter that a transit easement is not required. On the development site, the applicant is not subject to ULIP and does not require a public hearing. However, the community board may submit comments on the application until June 17th. Before I give it to the floor, there is no presentation. But the documents were sent to you Friday with all the information. I don't know if anybody's used Airtable. Personally, I haven't. I used it. Just was the best. I should have been using it, right? It had to be the best tool I've ever used in my life to simplify and streamline information, which I'm gonna ease some of our concerns, particularly when it comes to housing. So the description of the proposed development, the proposed project currently intends for an as-of-right 11-story residential building subject to inclusionary housing with a ground floor commercial totaling approximately 38,000 square feet, 7.2 FAR. The proposed building would comply with the C4-4D bulk regulations, whereby the max base height will be no higher than 105 feet. And the max building, I'm sorry, no higher than 105 feet, and the max building height will be no higher than 145 feet. I don't have issues with the application, but if any of you have other issues, I am now opening the floor for discussion. It's not a Q&A. You guys can talk, and then I'll hear you for the vote.
I just have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead. Free floor.
Doing some homework, Airtable, yes, it's great. It seems that Aaron Wexler is the owner, and it's kind of our job to do a little bit of research. If the Aaron Wexler correlates to another Aaron Wexler, Aaron Wexler is an artist. And so there's an opportunity to get to know local stakeholders through this process if they've filed paperwork to divulge. So in the effort of capacity building amongst the community board, inviting Mr. Wexler, who is now has been a stakeholder in our community for some time, who is going to do a development project eventually, to consider applying to the community board in the next round of applications. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Jessica, for that recommendation for the board. Is there any other comments relevant to this application? Any concerns? That's it.
So the only concern is, like I recommended on a similar application last month that we vote, just so we have something on the record. So whether it's voting left, right, or middle, doesn't matter, just so we have something.
Oh, no, we're gonna vote.
Yeah.
Support, not support, and if you don't support it, provide a comment.
And even if there's no comment.
Yeah, no
that's also
comment.
good.
Well, I'm in support of it, so I wanna hear from the whole committee. Yes, that's it.
I was just wondering if, as we were alluding, if there's not a yes or no, and that there's something in the middle of just like a no objection, that's an option here.
Yes.
Possibly, yeah.
My question is regarding,
I'm sorry, just to clear though, remember, I'm the chair, I don't make the motion. So you can make whatever motion you decide, you get a second, the committee hears. Yeah, buddy.
okay, is this like when, the building at 51 East 125th Street also, as a right building, I believe, and the NTA changed their mind regarding, that they didn't need, is it, transit easement? Is that like the same thing for that building? Okay.
Yeah, so of all construction, I don't know, actions in the transit zone have to go through this process. And in all instances, they end up like saying, oh, don't worry about it. But there are some places, like for example, the old Pathmark, right? Like they have to go through that process. They're not gonna go vote without the MTA giving the okay. But in this instance, like they provided here and Jason mentioned the MTA would have an issue because it's not really gonna touch on that part of that block. But it's in the zone, so it has to go through this process.
Okay.
Just clarification, so it was, you are.
That's it. That's the new member. Ask your question.
My question is the development, the combined development, which is, two properties, is it subject to MIH? It was
Not-
part of
not-
the. use-
Not MIH, but the voluntary inclusionary housing.
It is part of.
Which they profess inside the application.
So it would behoove us to mention a preference for including affordable housing in any future development at this point. No?
So not in this process, like that, doesn't behoove you from writing directly to the applicants. Because what's before us today isn't their inclusionary housing application, it's their transit application.
Which
So
is the beginning of the process for them. in
Right,
Developing.
But these comments are going to the MTA can care less about affordable. Right, so like if we wanted to comment separately, then you can, but it shouldn't be here. Jose has his hand up from DCP.
And just to clarify, Jessica,
You know what I mean?
that's what I did read the application out. They stated that they were their intention, but you're right, right? They went on record giving us an intention that they're gonna provide some housing in that same sense. Yeah, Jose, what, from DCP?
DCP.
Okay, well, hold on with Jose. Let's finish with the committee. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I was gonna put a motion on the floor, but we can.
No, well, let's hold the motion. I'm sorry.
Can I just ask one?
Absolutely.
I'm new to all of this, so very excited to be here.
Congratulations. I've been here 10 years and I still don't go.
What exactly is a transit regarding this?
Good question.
Because we're throwing a building up within the train zone, for lack of a better word, train entrances, tunnels.
Okay,
The reality is it creates a red flag that we don't want to give them permission to build and collapse a tunnel, right? So they go to the MTA, they say we're not affected. Then on top of that, that comes to us to say, hey, do we want to provide some public comment? And then it goes back to MTA. Well, yes, if you want the technical, answer George.
Well, sometimes the MTA needs spaces in buildings or on private property. And if you build your building and then they determine they need the space, it's very expensive. And so the idea is that you go to the MTA first, they decide whether they need the space. And then if they don't need the space, then you just build your building. That's what this is. They already said that they don't need the space. And this is just like, do we agree with that?
and I guess what is our real knowledge base to make a determination on that?
That's a conversation we have after the committee, and I'll show you the tools that we utilize, but I need not say they used to do this before computers, and God bless all you land use members that used to do this prior to Google Earth as an example. But that being said, we have a system and a process involved that allows us, that's what I read off of. that show that, you know, that they submit the proper documentation, they show those concerns. As Jessica brought up something particular to the developer, then that's another concern that may not necessarily come out this committee, but might come out of housing. But you can see it crosses, and I'll definitely, if you would love, I'd love to converse with you after the meeting. Is there any other questions? Seeing none from the committee or from the public, DCP? Jose?
Hi, all. No, I think, George covered it up. So I just wanted to clarify that. And, it's any new property that is located in the special transit land use district. So the transit zone does cover all of Upper Manhattan, but the special transit land use district is just, along Second Avenue and some portions of 125th Special District that were specifically designated for the Second Avenue expansion. All of those properties in that area will come to when before they can get an excavation permit to build, they had to go through this process. What we had done with the NTA is, trying to avoid multiple meetings and multiple, loops on this and get into, the first determination by the NTA before we refer it out to the community board, feeling that is a much better, process for the community board to see if there's going to be something needed. I believe there is an intention here to develop affordable housing. The development is as all right. I believe it's going to be 11 stories. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even know. Any other questions? Concern?
Sorry, just to clarify, it's, whatever the response or non-response that the board makes, action or no action, it is part of the project record. So it will get read by someone at some point, sometime, not just go to the MTA. It is a part of the project documentation that gets reviewed by legal teams and owners and everything, right?
Can I get a motion?
No, I'm just
You don't have to
clarifying.
convince me.
I'm clarifying because you said.
We all get it. If you want-
What's being clarified?
Yeah. We get you.
I'm just asking, 'cause I'm not seeing what the.
I'm clarifying that our position, right, whatever it is, becomes a part of the project record. We're not offering a position for the MTA solely, we're offering a position or a statement.
Whose project record?
The project record.
What do you mean?
That gets
What?
filed in the.
Where?
DCP,
Oh,
essentially, which is a part of, the project record, right? No?
I don't want to get this if you don't know. I'm asking you, did you reference project records? I want to understand.
Yeah, I mean, that is essentially right. The requirement of zoning resolution does say that, it needs to go to the Department of City Planning and the MTA for a joint certification. So what it does is certify the project as not requiring an easement. That way, with that certification, the applicant goes to the Department of Building and can finally get an excavation permit for new construction. Otherwise, if they don't have a permit, if they don't have the certification, they cannot proceed with construction.
Interesting. All right, thank you.
But also, if we don't act within 60 days, it relieves the applicant of any type of, liability. So if the certification is no issue within 60 days of being referred out, the property owner has no issue with, proceeding with getting the permit. That is a clause in this application.
Everybody clear? Any other questions? You ready to take a motion?
Motion to support land use application, have you got the serial number, N240310ZCM -2289 -2291 Third Avenue Transit Easement Certification.
Second.
Second by Jessica Elliott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's carried unanimously. Okay. Next, presentation, two proposals expanding use of development rights for larger developments in the city. Yes, for housing, Isaiah Thomas, Community Service Society, New York. Isaiah, are you present?
Yeah, so sorry, can't seem to get the camera working, but as long as you can hear me, I hope that's okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. I think let's try and keep this brief for you guys. I think I did send over a sort of like a one pager. That should make this a little bit easier. The gist of what we're pushing here is to expand the TDR air rights for NYCHA campuses. There's been obviously so many capital needs that NYCHA developments have, including in the district. It's getting up to, in the tens of billions of dollars. NYCHA's last P&A puts it at 80 billion. There's, probably a bit less of that because of some of the construction work that's been going on since, and some of the planned construction work, but still a big number. And the selling of air rights, a lot of the campuses are really built a lot under what they can be. And we've looked at, what TDR is possible. And right now, essentially, more than 90% of developments are locked. Those air rights are not going to be able to find a receivable site. So we are asking, there's a study that looks at sort of what it would look like to open it up to half mile, what it would look like to open it up to community district, what it would look like to open it up to, a few different areas. And if at a half mile, we found that, pretty much all of the sites have, something receivable, and many of them are, make a lot of sense and would at least unleash, at least 2019 was upwards of $8.4 billion. We haven't done a new estimate, but that was the number in 2019. So, it's a lot of capital money that could really go to developments that need the money so bad, especially at a time where, there's a lot of developments that are trying to close on deals right now, and the financing is just not there to really do these comprehensive rehabs, like, what residents really need at this point. So, we've included a case study of what it sort of looks like with Frederick Douglass houses in that one pager, and some of the broader ideas of what could happen at developments. But the reason I'm definitely coming to Community Board 11 is that we really would love your support and this sort of change. Our hope was to have DCP include this in the City of Yes, at least for a study. We sent a letter for it, and other organizations also asked them to include it. They did not include it in a study in the scope. So it does look like we may, they essentially made it so that they can't be voted on for the City of Yes. But we still would really, really ask for support, the Community Board. So yeah, I think that's the gist of it. And any other questions I'd love to answer.
I just have a quick question. I have to be honest, and I need to read more on it. But in terms of selling the development rights, the air rights, how is it that you can ensure, so for instance, Frederick Douglass, let's say they sold their air rights, how can you ensure that the monies received will go exclusively to support renovation and rehab at Frederick Douglass? Because, as you know, the city has this great bureaucracy and money seems to disappear in many different areas. Look at the congestive pricing that's wanted to be put in place for the MTA. So I'm just curious as to how it can be ensured that developments that are selling their air rights for millions of dollars potentially are actually going to get the benefit, and that money is not going to be siphoned off in other areas that have nothing to do with that particular development.
Yeah, thank you for that. Oh, go ahead.
But I don't know because I didn't read the whole thing, so I have to be honest.
No worries. No, it's a great question. I think the fact that NYCHA is, an independent organization of itself, separate from the city, is very helpful in that. I think there is still the worry that, NYCHA could take the money and use it for capital elsewhere. It's very, very true. I think on the flip side, because, the opportunity to do a lot of these rehabs are coming with, federal subsidy. I think it is one of those situations where it's going to take a lot of folks on the ground to talk to NYCHA and have these conversations with them. But I mean, we've got development in South Brooklyn right now, and one in the Bronx that had the opportunity to actually vote to enter into the Section 8 program most recently through what's called the Preservation Trust. And we think, with that kind of thing happening, that there's a lot more of a resident-centered approach here than probably that's ever happened in the history of public housing. So we do think, if something like this does go through, that there, is much more likely that residents would be able to, especially the tenant association leaders, would be able to ensure that happened. But it's definitely, a question.
Yeah, because there always seems to be a plan for NYCHA, and you have always different plans for NYCHA. Private development on NYCHA lands and potentially selling off NYCHA land. And so while this may be helpful, I'm just always curious because it seems like NYCHA is this experimental housing, and that's our largest site in East Harlem. And so I grew up in housing, so I am very protective of NYCHA developments in general. So I was just, worried about how this is going to be, overseen when it happens. So I'll do more homework and I'll leave my colleagues to ask more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nelson. Jessica Elliott, Vincent Torres, and then Ken.
Thank you for your information and discussion today. I think my question is more for DCP, and I guess it tangentially relates to the landmarks TDR and the city of Yes. But what are sort of the ways we can protect against unintended negative consequences here? Like if all of the land use, TDR was given to a single site, or like 432 Park, how that got able to do things that it shouldn't really be able to do. Or like, I can't imagine this would be a possibility, but some of the land use, the air rights transfers, like, for example, there's one on 110th Street, right by the subway station, where like buildings can extend over other buildings, and not that I think that would be a concern for a NYCHA campus, but like, those are the kinds of things I'm personally worried about here. How do we prevent that?
Yeah, I do think that's probably more of a DCP question, but I do think that, we've also included, and this is, partially through conversations with the city council, and that this can be written sort of responsibly. I think there were certain things that came up immediately, like we want to make sure that there's no transfers to floodplains, proximity to transit be included, and also there were some folks who definitely wanted to see in certain areas that if it is used, that it at least is required to meet MIH. But I don't think there's any reason unless DCP has some other reason why other specific considerations can't be made. But I mean, at this point, the way we look at it is right now there is no selling of any of the air rights. So this would at least allow for it to be a possibility.
Do you have anything to add?
I think Jose stepped away, but I would just add that when we talk about landmark TDR, it's a great way to relieve burden on certain sites and institutions where you don't want to see change, right? So in the case of landmarks, there's a certain financial burden that's associated with receiving landmark designation, especially if you have unused development rights. And likewise, if for communities that are hesitant about NYCHA infill or packed and rad conversions, this is a pretty good alternative in terms of generating revenue for these NYCHA campuses by selling these unused development rights, which generally abound in NYCHA campuses, since these are generally low density campuses when you look at the amount of open space. So if you're hesitant to embrace NYCHA infill or packed or rad conversions, I think this is a really sort of sensible alternative to explore in terms of generating revenue for NYCHA. In the same way, it's a sensible proposal for individual landmarks. And just reiterating what CHO is proposing to do is to make that a less onerous approval process from special permit, which we all know is full ULURP and very time and labor intensive to a chair certification. So there's still some amount of public review, but just a less onerous process, and also expanding that universe of eligible receiving sites, which in the case of individual landmarks today is very restrictive. But this would significantly broaden that universe.
Sorry, Trevor, I don't think you answered my question, though. What are the tools that we have to prevent unintended consequences?
I think that the tool would still lie in the element of public review, chair cert. Hopefully that would be disclosed throughout that process. The instance you cited, 432 Park Avenue, like Billionaires Row, that's a completely different sort of landscape for the transfer of development rights. There's no height limits on 57th Street, and there were other factors, including large zoning lot mergers that allowed for that context to emerge on 57th Street, which I don't think could be replicated in Community District 11. I'm sure, George, you might have another perspective on that, but I think there are pretty good guardrails in the case of CD11, both within the public review process, but also within the still sort of modest universe of eligible receiving sites that would prevent that sort of unintended consequences like you're referring to, and also like the speaker mentioned, restricting floor area transfers to more problematic contexts like development sites within the floodplain.
Okay, so our chair had to step away, so I'm going to call the next question, but before I do that, George, do you have anything you want to say, because he mentioned you and that might inform the question?
I have a question.
Hey, Candy, one moment, please. I'll recognize you as soon as Beverly asks hers. George?
I think the only thing I was gonna say is that City of Yes for Housing Opportunity, topic 9 is about infilling campuses, and they changing the rules to infill the campus. They're not changing the rules to offload the development rights off campus. There seems to be, DCP has chosen their policy direction is to build up NYCHA campuses by lessening or weakening or whatever, essentially changing the rules there to make it easier to do. So, while I think transferring them off was one of the options that was needed to be considered if, the existing restrictive zoning stayed, the proposal is to change the restrictive zoning into developing them on campus.
Thank you. Beverly?
What George said, that was my question and my concern, is how would this affect the campus infill that the City of Yes Housing Opportunity is pushing right now? Why didn't bring this up before? Like George said, before you talked about changing the rules of the zoning and everything like that. And also, I'd like to know what input are you getting from the tenants themselves? Because I know a lot of tenants were opposed to the RAD and the PAC. And if RAD and PAC has some of these projects right now or in their possession, would they become able to sell off the air rights?
this is a great question. And I think I want to sort of tackle that first part. I just have to agree. I, don't know why that wasn't included in the, I just would still like for us to try and push that. I'm sure, DSB can answer why it wasn't, but I do think, this needs to be understood that, I spend pretty much every week with residents, educating them on sort of what's coming down the pipe. Some of them are, NYCHA is pushing the PAC program. In some cases, we are, having these trust preservation votes for the first time, where people are actually getting to choose whether or not they want to go PAC, whether or not they want to remain with public management, or whether they just want to stay in the Section 9 program. And the reality is, whether or not, City of Yes changes the campus infill rules, there are going to be developments that don't want infill. It's just a fact. And I think that's why we really thought that the idea of maybe being able to at least sell off, in some cases, maybe some of the air rights. Because I think, there are developments that I've spoken to where folks would be more amenable to much lower, lower density construction on site, instead of, sort of the tall proposals that have been in place. So yes, residents are, right now sort of trying to understand what's going on and trying sort of getting their bearings on what they're facing. Some, will never accept PACT. Some, wanted PACT immediately, wanted to be the first on the list. Some want a choice. So it really varies across developments.
And would the people that already have projects under the RAD and PAC be able to sell these air rights?
Yeah, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. But again, NYCHA is still the owner of the land. So I think again, it would be a NYCHA decision.
Andy, then Jessica Morris.
Hi, hello. Thanks for that presentation. I want to ask, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so my question is, Mr. Thompson, did you discuss this with everyone in NYCHA, or the residents, or even with the CCOP at a meeting, that you could have discussed this with every single one, and this way you get a consensus from them? Because not everybody wants to be on that Section 9 program. Also, there has to be some type of a commitment, written agreement with the residents who want to sign on to what you're proposing, that the funding should be also based on what the needs are, addressing not only the needs of the residents, but what are the benefits around that community area that the residents can benefit from. So have you had that type of discussion before you seeking our support?
Yeah, I mean, I almost every week, sometimes every day of a week, spent on site in developments, talking to folks, educating folks on what's going on. This change that we're proposing this is nothing that will, once this goes through, suddenly changes anything at any development. All this is saying is put another tool in the toolkit to allow for funding to be raised for NYCHA. That's really all this is. This is not a decision for any development. Just want to make that clear.
Right, but that's for NYCHA, but we want to make sure it's not going to their staff. That is actually going to be put, like Jessica said, unintended. That it's not going to be that then the tenants don't benefit, and then you have NYCHA crying again that they need billions of dollars. Meanwhile, they're misusing the funds. And what I'm trying to say is this, what I'm trying to figure out, and my question was, have you spoken to anyone like in the CCOP? Because CCOP has all NYCHA residents, presidents, boards, at this one meeting on a specific date of the month. So this is the first I'm hearing about it. So that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I've spoken to some members of CCOP, and I've spoken, at many of the district meetings. CCOP specifically, haven't been able to go to their meeting, unfortunately. But again, you know, this is not the problem of NYCHA not spending money correctly is a problem that we are going to continue to fight and to work to improve. I think there have been some improvements in some ways, and there's obviously it's an ongoing battle. I just don't think that, you know, NYCHA is not good at spending money equals, you know, don't find ways to raise revenues, especially ways that residents might actually support. We want to fight to give residents the most possible options, especially right now when, you know, last week I go into a development and a person for months now has not had a real sink. He's using a false
Slap sink.
Yeah, I mean, you know, instances where people have holes in their bathroom and we put in work orders and we're trying to get that done over and over again. And I mean, I can go down the list over like, you know, all around the city, especially up in the Bronx and in northern Manhattan, South Brooklyn. But it's just like we need funding now. And you know, this is an easy way to potentially get some, and it feels like a no-brainer, honestly.
It seems like a no-brainer, but I just want to make sure, as a NYCHA resident, okay, that you are speaking to the rest of the residents. But in my point of view, it will be as though if I'm gonna have you do some air rights, and I know NYCHA has the right to do whatever they want with the properties, and also with the funding sources, but it doesn't make sense to try and sell a particular campus site, right? And you're selling their air rights, but then that money is gonna go into what escrow account? Is it gonna go to the same development that they're gonna benefit those repairs? Or is gonna go into their general operating tools that then they're gonna put in the capital improvement, and it'll be funneled to anywhere that they feel like they wanna put it? Because that will be a big concern, and it is a no-brainer to figure out that then why should we, you know, those air rights be sold, and then that same particular building site, you know, that whole campus is not going to benefit from it. I just don't see it, and maybe you need to give me a clear picture about it, because I don't see that, especially right now with all the everything that's been happening, with all the fraud that's been happening within the whole NYCHA management issue, which is who has been impacted has been the tenants, you know. So it's, you know, this is something that really has to have a serious concrete conversation with every single resident, that I know that you've exhausted that, and that, you know, that you have spoken to everyone else within the NYCHA residents, not NYCHA itself. Yeah.
Hey, we have another item that we need to address. Thank you for your position. It's well understood. Isaiah, thank you for the clarity. We're gonna move on.
Can I give one more, just a
I mean, you could respond to it, but with all due respect, I understand. I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the committee. I understand clearly what you're requesting, and I understand clearly what she's concerning. I don't think it's necessarily relevant to the land use debates about what are some of the challenges with housing. But that being said, we're voting on the city of yes tonight. So I need to get to that stage, right? And this would have been great conversation last month. It would probably even been better conversation for you last week to seek a letter of support from the housing committee, right? But that being said, Jessica Morris, I'm sorry, Jessica, let him respond. Please respond to Candy and let's continue.
Yeah, very, very simply, right now, the air rights are not sold. They're not going anywhere. You could not sell them, and the development would be in the state it's in. You sell the air rights, nothing changes for the residents whatsoever. The only difference is there's now money. You know, can we fight to make sure that money's used in that development? Yes. Is it possible that it's not? Yes, but there would not be any substantial difference for residents are they not sold. And again, I just hope that you guys can continue to pressure DCP to push this. And we were just really, you know, really saddened and not happy the fact that we have a whole zoning change with a whole bunch of changes that make a lot of sense and things we really support that just completely sort of miss this opportunity. So thank you for the time to speak.
Jessica Morris.
Thank you. And just to take the opportunity, I think and please be patient with me. I will not talk for a very long time. I have a couple of important points and a question. Fraud, waste, and abuse is the thing that I think there's some fear about when you talk to a community of people who saying you're sitting on an enormous amount of value, millions or billions of dollars. That means a lot. But the question of also, if this were viable, to build into the proposal a way to unlock some frame of equity or benefit for those residents who pay rent on time to stay in their apartment regardless of the condition. Economic empowerment through some sort of rental equity credit framework that can allow NYCHA residents to build on what is a perceived and real value of the places where they are. So just my question is, that would have to be an actual fleshed out part of the proposal, I think, whether it would be within NYCHA's jurisdiction, because it's not about zoning. It would be about the governance, which would happen at the NYCHA level. So that's something for you to consider as you continue to do this work. And I just want to clarify that this is coming up because it was an oversight or was intentionally excluded as a possibility by the city in developing the City of Yes housing opportunity. Was it an oversight or was it not?
Absolutely not. So, the letter that was sent to us, does applaud the effort for the city on including the infill development. It did call for contextual zoning in campus infill. Some the proposals that the changes that the city is making. What has been kind of a disconnect was the actual expansion of an existing program. Right now, NYCHA has the capacity to sell the air rights to adjacent properties. So I believe like in the next within the vicinity of the lot or so, through the transfer to preserve program that was created in 2020, 2019. I can fully recall this. There was 2022 or 2021 in East Harlem that received about $2.6 million for parking lot air use, transfer development rights. The most famous one being the one in Manhattanville. So this work has already happened. What the distinction in here was or the department, the city, and drafting these text is creating more housing within, units of housing. So like if we are proposing for campus infill is for developing housing within, a specific proposal that is going to be unlocking that development potential. Typically, when you're developing, selling development rights, this proposal or the proposal that is not from NYCHA, let's be clear with this, is from the regional planning. I always forget, it's not association, but RPP. Is calling for the expansion of the program to allow the transfer of development rights to the larger community district. So, I will be cautious on seeking on looping this with the City of Yes analysis and proposal that was published, what NYCHA currently does and what was being requested by RPP. There are three different entities, and I do applaud the forward thinking and wanting to expand further the proposal of City of Yes. But as we have said many times, our intention is to create just a little bit of housing everywhere else. I believe I wasn't part of the environmental review, but I could imagine that potentially expanding this type of TDR will have cost environmental impact, assessment needed. But I cannot speak to that. What I know is that, we have, an agreement on a couple of things that were already proposed. And this is an ask for taking it further. Not by NYCHA, but the RPP and like many other proposals that we have by a lot of supporters.
Sorry, just this was not considered in the original development of City of Yes housing opportunity, or it was and was decided it didn't fit the criteria for achieving the goals.
I can't speak to that. I mean, we have been aware of this request. I don't know if it was like part of the initial proposal and it was dropped. I know once it was, submitted as a request by RPP, the determination was not to, further expand the program at the moment and keep it within the campus infill. I cannot speak to the specifics behind that, but I can get an answer from John on this if, there was a specific determination or, a statement that the agency made.
That would be great if you could, thank you. And last point is there an ask from Community Service Society of New York?
Yeah, I'm saying. Wonderful letter of support. But yeah, I won't speak for Axe. Isaiah, what's your axe?
I mean, the ask is obviously to support the proposal. And I mean, just if you are requesting, an answer for why it wasn't included by DCP, that in of itself, super useful. And so that's great.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that answer. What was the response about why it wasn't included?
No, I'm saying I'm thanking you for asking why it wasn't included, and hopefully you can get a formal answer to that. And we would love to also know what that was.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yes.
Isn't it ask for us to include that as a question that gets sent to DCP?
No.
Yes.
That happened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we already asked that question. Yeah, Nelson.
Just to clarify what I'm hearing from Jose and from yourself. It's my understanding that Jose said that the reason this wasn't included or may not have been included in the City of Yes was because the City of Yes is looking to develop new housing and expand housing within the buildings that are in existence. Whereas this is more of a transfer of air rights to support existing housing and to help upkeep existing housing. That's what I'm hearing, and that's what Jose mentioned. So I think that was the answer. That one is the City of Yes is for zoning changes so that new housing can be developed. And your proposal about the air rights is to help support the NYCHA housing that is currently in existence.
No, that would the proposal would do that as well. It also could help support new housing. I don't think that would be the reason.
Let's go.
As far as our plan of contention is to say whenever somebody comes in front of us, and it takes 2 months. So needless to say, July and August is shut. We won't be voting on this till possibly September. I still recommend that you present this to the housing committee and seek to take further action. As far as committee members, it is your purview should you want to decide to have the comment as a condition. That doesn't take it away. So I don't think that you're being less of a voice, right?
If we get an answer, we'll let them know. From DCP.
I mean, those are two agencies, they can communicate to each other. I'm even more interested is to NYCHA, right? We're talking to two completely different agencies. And if I was, really invested in looking into this, come today, my next request is exactly what can be presented to this committee, right? Where's NYCHA?
Yeah.
So that takes nothing away from the efforts that are coming from the Community Service Society of New York, which is excellent to lead this organization. I believe have they presented here previously, Angel? Right?
Dozens of times.
Yeah, so, I think it's a conversation that can be taken. But I am in no position to ask the board or the committee to take a stance on supporting or not supporting this item that was just presented to us today. So thank you for your presentation, Isaiah. We will carry on old business.
All right, thank you.
Next item. Old business. Excellent. We're continuing the discussion and the committee vote regarding land use application for the city of Yes for housing opportunity.
The last one.
Oh, we still got to vote on the $500 we spent by HPD's event that you have missed, which is is a voluntary, I can't ever say these words, they're oxymoron, but a voluntarily mandatory meeting that I would love for you all to attend. Yes, that Angel announced in the beginning of the day.
Thursday. And then it's the last meeting. Yes.
Okie dokie, I think we've been drowning in City of Yes since the month of, I don't know, June 2023, right? We did two major pieces, carbon neutrality, then we did economic development, and now here comes the infamous housing opportunity. All information has been presented to the committee. There was a slew of questions asked. BCP answered every single one of them. I want to applaud you all because both boards didn't even make a third of our Q&A, right? So that shows you the amount of engagement upon your efforts, as well as some of the documents that I'd asked Angel to send out. Some of you are looking at the hard copies today. I promise you, it's in your email inbox already. Where we sent the information so you can be proactively ready for today. George James even did a great presentation. I can't speak for him as far as, but it was from what I saw, it was an environmental discussion, as it was an hour and 30 minutes. I watched it, it was awesome. It had everything to do with some of the concern with, for lack of a better word, overloading the infrastructure of the city of New York, which Jessica from Parks presented a lot of great questions to DCP that answered some of those questions that I think that, we can continue to drive this conversation, but I think at this stage, it's in our best interest to gauge our current votes. I'm not holding you to your survey. The survey was an effort. It's not an outcome. The outcome's coming today, right? So I think we should go around the room. Pretty much we're gonna do this exactly like we did at the economic one where majority rules, right? So, and then of course, if you're a naysayer, if you're the guy or gal that says no, I expect to go on Google Docs and see your comment for the resolution, right? Or you're gonna write the comment, or you've already emailed it to me, right? Because we've been stressing it for the last few months. So that's my piece as far as direction, right? We're gonna quantify the votes for each particular item, then we're gonna summarize that, right? So if the majority is nay, or in this case, yay, and the others are nay, then we're gonna support the application. If it's majority's nay, then we're gonna disapprove the application. And then we're gonna go to each individual item as it's drifted. I don't know if everybody reviewed the draft resolution that was sent out on Friday. You've also had access to it on the drive for about a month. So I think it was very well crafted, thanks to our superstar staff liaison, Mr. Stay. So, and with some of the help of PCP. So that's my two piece to try to make it simple. George, Angel, you got anything for us before we go into discussion for vote? Thank you, gentlemen. George provided a letter to summarize the two presentations he did for us. So I hope you all did a lot of reading, because I know I did. It was hard to get to the 51 questions, but let alone everything else. So I'm gonna pretty much just tally it. I'm gonna hold you to court. We're gonna just go through this and keep it as simple as this. Town center zoning, you have this form in front of you. You should have checked it already during the meeting. You should have did it already on the Google Docs so we can continue with the resolution. But this is gonna help round out the motion. Town center zoning. If you're in support of the application, raise your hand.
Wait, can I make a comment?
Yes.
This relates to all the things that don't relate to our district. Is there an appropriate position to say
you know, we shouldn't be able to vote on this because it has nothing to do with us.
Some community boards have done that. This community board, as you just expressed earlier, we tend to comment on anything that's applicable to us, so it could be citywide. That's pretty much the answer to that. You don't have to, if you don't want to. And if I have enough extensions, that shows me that we don't want to, right? So, does that make sense?
Wait, so an abstention typically
In
comes
this
with a
case,
no.
which in this case, an extension would mean we don't want to vote. Right? I'm not gonna count it as a no, because we're not taking an overall position, we're trying to do a tally to get to that position. Without putting anybody under pressure to do anything that they do not want to do, right? They're making your vote. So, does that make sense to everybody, right? Not trying to reinvent the wheel for economic development, but we'll find we make comments in this board, and guess what? We might not make a comment because they forgot about it, and then your change helps them, right? So that's another way to look at it. So town center zoning, low density, is to reintroduce buildings with ground floor commercial and 2 to 4 stories of housing above in areas where the classic building form is buried under today's restrictive zonings. All those in support, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not support. 1, 2, 3. Abstention. Got it, 1. So majority is in support.
Candy had her hand up, I'm not sure for which one.
It's hard, yeah, that's a good question, because yeah. I'll leave that
Not.
I will leave that to office oversight.
She was a not, so you're a no.
She's not.
You had more no's.
We got more notes.
Right.
All right, can we count that again? All
I thought
those
it was 4-4.
I know what I'm
It's
saying.
a presidential election?
It's 4-4-1.
And then
Actually, I think it was 4.
No.
It was 4-4-1, but the abstentions are no,
No, the abstention is, that would have meant if we all abstain, we don't wanna.
so it's a
It's a
stalemate.
dead tie.
So it's more 4, but is she the split vote?
No, I think she makes it.
She makes it 4-4.
Oh, she makes it.
It was 4-3-1, now it's 4-4-1.
Yeah, I'm voting for people voting that are present, you know?
I lean toward yes. I lean toward yes.
Okay, well, I think.
Well, we can just skip it, I mean, honestly, this is gonna be painful, let's try it again. Ready? Transit center, this is why I asked you guys to do this before you got here, to make this our lives easier. Town center zone, yes or no, right?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4 yeses. 5 yeses. 5 to support. How many do not support? 1, 2, not support. 3, and Candy's 4. 5 overrules 4. 5 in support. Those that did not support it, we still can add the conditions.
That's great.
All right, we're not gonna do that either. But my adamancy is if we don't support it, and you're one of those people like, before we raise your hands, I expect that addiction from each and every one of you. Transit oriented development.
You just did that.
No, we did.
No, we're over the town center zone. All right. We did town center twice, 'cause we need a tiebreaker, and Jessica was shooting up to work with it. Transit oriented development. Allow modest 3 to 5 story apartment buildings where they fit best. Large lots within half a mile of a subway or rail stations that are on wide streets or corners. All those in support? 1, 2, 3, 4 in support, 5 in support, not in support. 1, 2, and I take it the rest of abstentions, so support. It is.
Candy, if you could just do a voice vote, it'll be easier, so we're not sure when your hands went up.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, check that.
They're pulling teeth today.
Number 3.
Accessory, so yeah, so there we go. Recap transit oriented development, the committee is in support. Again, doesn't take away those of you not in support, please give us your comments immediately so that we're not here till 2 in the morning. Accessory dwelling units, permit accessory dwelling units such as backyard coverages, garage conversions, and basement apartments. Are you in support or not support? So all those in support, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, all 5. Those in not support. 1, 2, 3, and even if Candy was 4, support wins.
I'm abstaining. I know. I have mixed feelings about that. That's why.
Understood. Hopefully you never lived in a basement apartment. District fixes. I've been there. Give homeowners additional flexibility to adapt their homes to meet their family needs. All those in support, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yes.
6. There we go. I'll take it. Those in not support, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. Right? Again, so those who are not in support, don't be offended, submit your comments, and we'll include it in the resolution. Universal affordability preference. Allow buildings to add at least 20% more housing. If the additional homes are permanently affordable, this proposal extends an existing rule for affordable senior housing to all forms of affordable and supportive housing. All those in support, raise your hands. 1, 2,
Yes.
3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is the
Can we say
magic
yes?
number.
Yes.
Here we go. And we heard you. We heard you. 3 or no, please submit your, it should already be in the draft resolution.
I have a question on
Yeah.
our comments are going to inform the whereas statements for each.
Let it be resolved is in the way it's resolved. Any of our conditions will be let it be resolved, whereas is like, how do you get ready, you build up that, this is why we're gonna resolve it. Which is, we could have just wrote,
Jason, hang on.
city of,
I know you're excited.
no, I'm not.
I want to go, but I
Yeah,
just,
okay.
for clarification, there are 16, 12, there are however many positions we're taking, or each one, and I believe for the City of Yes Economic Opportunity, those were separate. Were they not?
Have you, you got a copy of the draft resolution on?
Yes,
file?
I do.
You see how it's crafted, right? All crafted, look at the bottom. See how?
Which is this different than how we did it for past?
When we did the economic one, we did this.
We did exactly this. So the same way those boxes say support, non-support, we're gonna do the same thing there, and then any of our comments we could we'll put them in tonight.
Okay,
Which
and
is
so the
exactly-
request modification is it
Yes,
resolve
it's a
that
condition.
modification are the conditions.
Correct.
Okay, and so we're not going to discuss our conditions, we're going to enter them into a Google form.
We could discuss them, absolutely, we should discuss, they should be in there already. Right? I just went to the Google form, I seen all the comments, it's not in the draft resolution, but we could have discussed them after we get past the vote. This is what we did last time, Jessica, we went through the whole list,
Right,
voted,
so you
and then we went back, let me finish my thought, and then we went back and added the condition.
So I'm sorry, this is the second time I felt belittled in participating in our conversations this evening. Just to state that, aside from requested modification, I'm just clarifying that if we have concerns or modifications to suggest, albeit those should already be in our document, the document is empty, there are none as of now. Call aside, we're all here working together. That if there are requested modifications that deserve discussion, now tonight is the time to put those on the table and say, hey, I think this is a valid requested modification. Do you all agree? So that we don't get to full board and there's things that pop up that we have said yes or no to collectively, but not specifically addressed. So are we going to go through any suggested requested modifications after we do the voting process?
Right, sure.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Proceed.
Are we ready? Any other questions on process? Next, lift costly parking mandates. Eliminate the mandatory parking requirements for new buildings, parking would still be allowed, and projects can add what is appropriate at their location. All those in support, raise your hand. Well, we should wait for all of you, sorry.
I think she raised it.
She did.
I missed it. I'm sorry. I don't know where it's going to go.
No.
Okay.
You're saying good night.
Oh, good night. Live costly parking mandates. All those in support? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Support wins. Next, convert non-residential buildings to housing. Make it easier for underused non-residential buildings such as offices to be converted into housing. All those in support? 1,
Aye.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are in support. Small and shared housing, reintroduce housing in shared kitchens or other common facilities, eliminate strict limits on studios and one-bedroom apartments. All those in support? 1. All those non-support? 6.
No.
Make that 7.
I counted 8.
I'm sorry. I don't know if you hear me or you don't. And I'm raising my hand.
Almost there. Next, campus infill. Make it easier to add new housing on large sites that have existing buildings on them and already have ample space to add more. Example given, a church with an oversized parking lot. All those in support? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those not in support? 1, 2, 3, 4.
No.
5. Do not support wins. Next item. New zoning district. Create new residence districts requiring mandatory inclusionary housing that can be mapped in central areas in compliance with state requirements citywide. All those in support? 1, 2,
Yes.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not in support? 1. Support it is. Update. You lost.
No, it's not.
Alright. We support it. New zoning district. Support. Update to mandatory inclusionary housing. Allow the deep affordability option and mandatory inclusion housing to be used on its own citywide. All those in support? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yes.
8, 9. Unanimous. Wow. They were our first unanimous. Sliver law. Gotta make this fun, right? I know I sound like a bingo guy. Allow narrow lots to achieve underlying quality housing heights in R7 to R10 districts. All those who support? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those not in support? 1, 2. For all.
Abstain.
Abstain. Abstain.
So we got 3 abstentions, 2 do not support, 4 support. Support it is. Got it?
Maybe
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh, no, we didn't question the project manager? My middle name is Matt, no. Oh, I'm joking, though. All serious, I didn't raise my hand, I abstained as well on the slip law, sorry. That's why there's some confusion. But yes, it's for support, so support it is for the committee. Quality housing amenity changes. Extend amenity benefits to the quality housing program to all multifamily buildings and update to improve incentives for family-sized apartments. Trash storage, disposal, indoor recreational space, and shared facilities like laundry, mailrooms, and office space citywide.
Enthusiastically.
All those in support? 1,
Yes.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those not in support? 1. I take that's an abstention for Nelly. Support it is 6 goals. I mean, we can keep going, but honestly, guys, we've supported most of it. Just so you already know. I know you're happy over there, okay? Landmarks transferable development rights. Make it easier for landmarks to sell unused development rights by expanding transfer radius and simplifying procedures. All those who support, this is transferring the development rights for a landmark property, right? We were just complaining about, anyway, I'm not gonna do that. Sorry,
I abstain.
wait, all those who support, sorry. 1, 2, 3 in support, 4 in support. Those not in support. 1, 2. And
I don't
missed-
support.
And we got 3 abstentions. You do support it or not?
No, I'm not gonna support it because it's not a one size fit all. That's why.
It's all right, it doesn't matter. Support wins. 4 support, 2 do not support, and 1. I'm sorry, and 2 is abstaining. Me and Elliot. Are we in agreement?
That's 8 people.
That's
That's not.
I did not.
Yes,
Oh,
4-2.
you support it, so
I
it's
got
5.
3.
All right.
So it's 5 support.
It's 5 support, 2 abstain, and 2 not supported. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
I do not want to move on, and then there's, you guys have fun with me in full board.
I have a question about full board.
So we finish this before we get to it, or you can answer yet?
No, we'll wait till we're done.
Okay, railroad right of way. Simplify and streamline permissions for developments involving former railroad rights of way citywide. All those who support? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those not in support? 2. Sandy, where you stand?
Abstain. I abstain.
So, now let's run through the tally.
Jason.
Yes, sir.
A correction on the sliver law votes, that actually would not, that's a do not support, the noes and the abstentions count together, so that's 5.
Which one is
So-
it?
I don't support the sliver law.
Are we counting the abstentions and no's on this?
That's what I was just.
Oh, no, that changes a lot.
The
I think
abstention.
that changes a lot of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not a lot, I mean, there's probably 2 of them that are actually.
Why did I only one?
Alright, so I have 2 like that, so that actually goes down the abstention. So let's revisit that, because I know that might mean for those that abstain, you may change your position now, rightfully so. Because it wasn't clear, so I made it clear, we're using parliamentary procedure over my logic. Sliver law, allow narrow lots to achieve underlying quality housing heights in R7 to R10 districts. All those in support, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? That's what I see, about 4. Those that do not support it, it's 1, 2. And
Candy.
abstention. Candy, where you stand?
Can't,
Are you-
I don't support.
Don't support. So that is,
And I'm still an abstention.
that number is 3.
And 1 abstention.
Right, we still have 1 abstention.
There's 2
That's
abstentions?
4. So then Jason's tiebreaker, so I will support it.
Oh, there we go.
Whoa, 5 and 1.
So we have 5, 3, and 1. That clarifies the sliver law. Okay, landmarks I'm not gonna go back to, because even that number is not all. Yeah, the other one's the extensions don't affect that, like the sliver law.
No, I was the only one.
Yeah, yeah, make sense? Wrong. You wanna ask a question now?
I do, yeah, so I applaud the committee for doing our work and I'm surprised at how much we've said yes. After the general amount of concern in the room after the presentation and the hearing at full board last month. And so we represent a small but mighty and very well informed and diligent as it pertains to land use issues, segment of the board. I anticipate that we may not have so much enthusiastic support for a lot of these things when we go to full board. Are we going to be voting individually, or will the full board be voting to approve the committee's recommendation or disapprove the committee's recommendation? Just want to head off any potentially confusing procedural challenges.
You know, the biggest challenge with full board honestly is, and I can't speak for them, this goes back to following parliamentary procedure, right? The committee did the work. The position of the board should be as simple as supporting and not supporting the committee's recommendation. And then that's what should be limited to vote. I think it's happened here, right? Where some of you, I won't say names, have supported our actions that we have for function, and then when we go to full board, you don't support it. It's your right. It's the right. So there's always the opportunity that this is another issue I've seen continuously that I've made comments at executive, is that if you take, do I get right next, I'm gonna ask for a motion since the way we did it, right? And then someone's gonna support it, they're gonna make their motion. The friendly amendment should happen prior to the second, right? Usually we end up seconding, then we go back and basically create a whole nother motion, which wastes a lot of time. I think that in us having conversations with the board and expressing to them the efforts and the energy that was put forth, that yes, we have the same concerns everyone does, where if there's no housing stock available, then the prices are gonna go up with the DCP, and those of us who are already aware, zoning is not gonna fix the rent regulation concerns. Forget it. Yeah.
Just, I remember how incredibly smoothly the past two votes went, given the amount of complexity in doing our work across both our committee and economic development and housing. It was really successful to go to full board and have full support in just moving forward. Here, there are some contentious points, and I think we've heard that there's some concerns. Is it, are you going to be willing to entertain adjustments on any of these specific proposals at the point of full board? Or
That's on the chair of the board. When it gets to full board, it's out of my hands.
right, so I guess what I'm suggesting to be ready for, or having kind of understood, is where were we on the fence collectively? Are there 3 or 4 that were clearly, the committee, was, there were a couple tiebreakers, and are those things that matter a lot to the full board in a way, because we want to be doing the work to represent, the whole body and not just what the 9 of us kind of think, whether we're more informed or less informed, it doesn't matter. So I'm just, it went really smoothly last time, but housing is a very, heartfelt and complex.
To your point, the board could completely reject our recommendation. And guess what? In my opinion, that's okay. That's democracy. That's okay. Then we will not be making any comment to the DCP should that be rejected. And that's something that I agree. That's not what I'm at. You have to speak to the chair of the board. I do not know what is that individual's intention of how they're gonna deliver this on that day. I look at it, and probably the Darren's the best in any of us in understanding that, where, everything could go great at committee, and it goes to full board, and someone's motivates the whole board to go left, and though everybody said that they were for it, and then now all of a sudden they're against it. Right?
And like you, I'm okay with that.
Exactly. It's part of the process. It's their right, in my opinion.
We're all one vote each, so we can't worry what everyone else is gonna vote on.
I'm okay if they do. I will challenge the board, as I've done in the past. I've challenged members that are here that have been oppositions in certain situations, and I'm gonna say, okay, let's have that discussion. And again, that's up to the chair should he decide. The same way here, I said, all right, it's gonna be 9 o'clock and we still haven't wrote our conditions, and we may be at 10 o'clock tonight. the chair's also gotta manage the time for that meeting.
And last point is the conditions matter more than whether we're yes or no, I think in
I agree.
the end. And the reading what's come back from City of Yes Economic Opportunity, things that we identified as issues were changed, and I think that's what really matters, so.
I agree. And I really
getting to that is
would
important.
stress to the chair, the way I stressed to the committee, and I will have to, after we get out of here, to be able to tell them, hey, reach out to your board members and tell them to read the Q&A. All right, it was very, I don't know how you guys feel, I felt it was very informative, where DCP took a lot of positions of what they're going to do. And if those of us who are in the advocacy realm, for preservation, for affordable housing, you have a lot of, for lack of a better word, meat and potatoes there with that too. But yeah, unlike the previous two applications, Jessica, to your point, I think what's more concerning for leadership is the fact that housing did not opine on this. Right, so that's something that housing is gonna have to speak to the board, should the board decide to question that. Right, but a lot of you are on housing. I'm not too concerned, right, Beverly, right, Candy? So that's my logic. Is there any other questions so we can move forward? All right, let's keep going.
They were all supportive of that, is that right?
I'm sorry, I'm the worst out there. So town center zoning was supported, that's one. Town transit oriented development was supported, that's number two. Accessory dwelling units was supported, that's three. District fixes supported, four. Universal portability preference support, that's five. Citywide live falsely parking mandate support, that's six. Convert non-residential buildings to housing, that's support, that is seven. Small and shared housing, we do not support, that's one. Seven support, one non-support. Campus infill, we support, that's eight.
I think that was enough
Oh, we did.
for.
I think that was not.
That's 4 or 5, do not.
Oh, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, I think, I biasly.
I think you supported it. but-
Exactly, you're right, I biasly take my vote, thank you. But I circled non-support, so non-support is at two, we still have seven support, right?
What? Overall.
Overall,
yeah.
two did not support,
Right,
seven
yeah.
supported. Are you agreeing with Beverly?
Mhm.
Say what now?
The tally right now, what we up to, 7-2.
Your number, no, we're doing number seven right now.
Yeah. New zoning districts, no, I want us all to be on the same page. So Beverly, right, all the way up to campus infill, seven of them we supported. Small shared housing and campus infill, we did not support as a committee.
Right,
Are you in agreement with that?
yes,
Okay.
right. Right.
All right, now we'll move on, right? 7 and 2. New zoning districts, we're in support of, that's number 8. Updates and mandatory inclusionary housing, that's supported, 9. The silver law, sliver, I always say that wrong. Sliver, and that reminds me of tile every time I think of it. The sliver law, we are in support of, that was 10.
No, that's what we know.
Yeah, so we.
Oh, he changed it, yeah,
We
fine.
redid the focus
He was
section.
the design, oh, yeah. okay.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
added non-support because of the extensions, and then we flipped the extension. Except for I think one of you still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense? So we had 5 supported, 3 not supported, and then after, Angel provided us the clarity, I swung my vote from an extension to a support. All right, we're on the same page? All right, excellent. So we got 10 support, 2 not supported. Quality housing amenity changes, 11. Landmark transferable development rights, 12. Support. Railroad right of way, 13, support. 13 support, 2 not supported. Sounds like the committee supports the application. Come over to motion.
But it's 15, but it's 15. It's 15 altogether.
Yeah, it's 13 and 2.
The two we didn't support is,
Campus infill and small and shared housing.
okay.
Yes, that's
I don't support the infills.
We're done with the voting. Thank you though for your comment, Candy. We're going into voting for the overall, I'm firing for you guys, which already come up with, which is to support the application, and then we need to do the conditions.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, we're going to move forward on our positions and then get to our conditions. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, wonderful. Motion to support the committee's recommendations as they were outlined in the run through a moment ago.
Which will be reflected on the resolution. Seconded by Vinnie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Beverly Pavone, 1. Any abstentions? The motion passes. Next. Any conditions?
Those kind of ones that we did.
We don't have to make it that complicated. We just draft out the condition. I'll give you one even better. So we don't stay at the 10 o'clock at night. Email your conditions. That sounds good, right?
Yeah.
Because if you didn't email it already, you didn't want a condition, right? So I'll give you another opportunity, email the conditions. Right, and we're all adults here, we'll send out a draft resolution again for an editable review on Friday. Right, I will call every single one of you on Monday, as I've been doing. Right,
Should we just give everyone a time limit for?
which is Friday,
Okay,
the dead date is Friday.
then I
And
think
if
we
it-
should take care of it.
Tomorrow, Friday?
Today's Wednesday. I wish I had this schedule.
That's a
Brief discussion about.
It's absolutely true, Jessica, it's just that conversation could go for a very long time. And, I mean, I have my conditions already prepped, I don't know where other people are, and, you know, in the interest of other people's time, it's already 9 o'clock. I have a lot of faith in this committee, we did it like 10 times already. Sometimes we won't come with the conditions now, but we'll present the conditions, we're in overall support for the application, so that's my mindset. If it was not in support, I think we'd be having a different conversation.
I'd like to mention, and I don't know how to put it, sorry, Nelson. No, it's okay, be quiet and leave is good.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
I have
haven't
something-
said, Jessica, I haven't said a word. If someone has annoyed you, or multiple people have annoyed you today, please do not extend that to me. Because I have never been rude to you and I have never been rude to anyone here, and I'm not about to start. And it's my first time back to this meeting after being gone 3 months. So you can feel free to say whatever you'd like to say, and then I will wait patiently and I will put my hand up again, and then I will say and be ready.
You had your hand up.
You know, that's okay. Chair?
Jessica, yeah.
I was going to suggest that a time limited conversation, to put any thoughts about contributing to our points for recommendation, can be discussed collectively, that I think that there's some value in doing that.
I think it's a
It
help,
doesn't
yeah.
have to take us an hour, but some time limited opportunity to collectively discuss ways to contribute to the community voice that does have value when changes are being made to the zoning. That's my suggestion.
Nelson.
I just wanted to know where I just have a general comment. Any proposal that removes public input, that removes community board input, that removes city council input, that should be somewhere noted. I don't know where it would be noted, and it could be in your intro paragraph on the, because I'm very leery about just things being done without public input. And that was my only comment for any of these, anything that says that.
So in the interest of time, right? And honestly, I do agree with you, Jessica. It is 9:03. I'll open the floor for 10 minutes. And let's come up with our conditions. But it doesn't take away from opining until Friday. If anyone else has to go, you can read your paper, let's do this, yeah. Nilsa gave us one already, I am in full agreement with it, it's already inside of my Google Doc. Of when I voted, so I agree with Nilsa that there should be a general condition that tells DCP and or any city agency that despite whatever they do with the housing, if there's anywhere in those, how many pages is it, George?
1,386 pages.
All right, right. If there's anywhere in those 1,300 pages that they were cute to remove the public process, I do believe that we should. Regardless if we're in support or not support, they shouldn't get rid of the, well, you said it so much better, Neil, so can you send that to us in writing?
Yeah, I'll send it
Like
to
right
you.
now, please? That's you already said
Not
it's
right now,
perfect.
we got it,
Oh.
but I'll send it to you.
Perfect, right, we're in agreement with that condition, right? I
Yeah.
agree with it, yeah, Beverly.
Yeah, because what Nelson is speaking of, George made a comment about the CPC, having, rights to use the term we use, where
The authorization,
the authorization,
Yes.
yes.
so they're changing special permits to authorization, which cuts city council out of the process.
Right.
It's, they don't hold a hearing, they don't hold a public hearing.
Right, so there's a lot of things that were discussed in their presentations that we're voting on. And I have this part concerns.
Yeah, then.
All right, I'll go quick. This probably was covered, but just regarding the convert non-residential buildings to housing. I think it said offices built before 1990. I don't know if they changed that, but is there any affordability requirement when those office spaces? There is. So would this be an opportunity to make a condition on that? Now, I don't know what we want to ask for specifically, but that's why I voted no. Because I'm for them converting it, but if I recall, this had a lot to do with the pandemic and these people were stuck with big office buildings, they couldn't. And so if they're gonna profit off that, I think there should be some affordability requirement on that. It seems to be on everything else. So why not that? But that's, maybe I'm wrong.
No, yeah, honestly, in every part, I'm in the position that UAP shouldn't be an option.
Right.
Mandatory. Particularly if it's affected, if it has anything to do with the city of guest housing. Zone text amendments, which is gonna be black and white in the text. So it's not, but again, that's up for the agencies to enforce.
But that could be another recommendation.
Agree, wholeheartedly. No, I think we should put it in.
To separate, Dan, your contribution with regard to the conversions, having an affordability component be required, such as MIH is a great suggestion. And Jason, you're shifting the conversation to the universal affordability preference. What I wrote in response was more permanently affordable housing is good. Housing production is critical. To add MIH that, to get a bonus if you do more, but you don't get to do none.
Right.
Right? It shouldn't be an option to
do nothing.
to do none. I brought up, something that Vinny, you know very well, community benefits agreements are things that, engage community coalitions relative to, development. Perhaps there's, some, whether it's a square footage amount trigger that would require an as of right development to engage a community benefits agreement, which would bring the community board to the table to be able to say, we want affordable housing and these are some of the things we want, whether it's local hiring or even if they decide to do none and not get their bonus, they still have to come and engage with the community in some way if it's required. I mean, it's another tool.
Right, for potentially large scale, more large scale projects.
But even small, if community benefits agreements, if you start
Right,
to, you know,
right.
maybe that's, you know, you don't wanna have those things going on all the time, but
Mhm.
you know, it potentially offers the opportunity for the community to continue to have a voice, even when the community needs change.
Yeah.
If, you know, if what the community needs today is going to be voiced and agreed upon, you know, one way, 10 years from now, it may be something different, and the ask based on a place-based development may have some value to determine later and not now, but to make that, you know, a part of the process. So I would suggest that that be part of our pass. It's an old school tool, but I think if there is no affordability mandated, or, you know, somehow someone can figure out how to perhaps make that a part of the process, as opposed to, you know, having everything be as of right and the community not being engaged. So, which would, I think, fit best under universal affordability preference, as a comment.
So you're gonna send us that, right?
Well, I don't know if there's any thoughts on it. But yeah, happy to.
You guys, before we move on, I want to, the same way we cleared up Nosa's, let's clear up Jessica's. Does anybody have questions to what Jessica's stated? Or we're gonna put it as is?
I was just trying to add it to the draft, the resolution line, but if you could just concisely summarize it so that I can do that. And then it's going under UAP number 5, right?
So we don't object to that idea.
I just want a summary, yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah, summary is fine. Check it now, but I'll do it by Friday, sure.
Okay.
Is it something that the board thinks is a good idea?
I think the more tools that we have when we're deregulating ourselves, the better. I think that's been the concern with this bill. As
And
she's talking specific to workforce development and community, right? Not just workforce development, right? Just overall community benefit.
And affordable housing.
there's two conditions, right? One being, engage, community benefit agreements, whether there's some size or whatever, I don't know, to think about it. And somehow require, you know, the universal affordability. Is it crazy to ask for mandatory inclusionary housing everywhere? I mean, we can ask for that, right?
That's
We can.
kind of what I was.
We're in a crisis.
Yeah, so why can't we say that we want that, even though it's not what they want to do?
No, we should and we can, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, right, I mean, in the Q and A, they said they can't do it, right? City can't cover, you know. I think that the answer to your question is yes, we can put it in there. The clarity to your question, we can talk about it after committee when I'm not on camera. Anybody else?
Beverly has something to say.
Yeah,
Beverly.
in regards.
Is it new, Beverly, or are you gonna?
No, it's still with,
With Jessica?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
because, also I would ask that it be done even with the landmark transfers. Because there was a process when landmarks based on how they say, you know, the people have to get involved in it. So why couldn't they have affordable housing put in that also?
Great.
I mean, that's a lot of land that's gonna be, on the airways is gonna be, opened up, a market, new market.
Good point.
You know, so why not?
I'm interested in that, Beverly.
Yeah.
So I lost that. What do you mean by?
So for any landmark transferable development, right?
Which is.
There should be an
owner of that
affordable-
building's right?
Right.
What do you want the owner of that building's right to go to who?
Whoever goes to, they should be tied into some level of affordable housing.
Well, what if those air rights were just as of right?
That's my point. I don't agree with that logic.
So now, because then by that definition, anyone who has, not buildable air rights on any building, I mean, I think that's becomes a slippery slope. If it's as of right, if you're landmarked at 4,000 square feet, but your, zoning says you could go to 8. Should you really be penalized because it's landmarked? I mean, I have my own feelings about landmarking things, but I just, that to me is where I would then not be in support of that.
But the land, okay, the rights are being sold.
I understand that, but that devalues the rights when they're sold. So now you take some, but it's as of right, square footage.
Not anymore if it's a fair transfer. Well, I mean.
But it was part of that person's property and their, well, I mean, look, that's my opinion.
Right,
I
but it was
think
a
I said it
landmark
pretty
project.
clearly, but I'm not gonna
You
get.
said it very clearly, and I actually agree with you.
And I don't have
But
any
if
landmark
you-
buildings.
No,
but-
it's, and that's why. we're
I'm gonna
having
put
this
it on the national registry, so don't worry.
They're all pretty.
Some of us in our own buildings and are nonprofits, right? The reality is my building's a landmark. I wanna do what I want with my air rights, but you're telling me if I sell my air rights, I have to.
No, no,
fund,
not, no, not.
Whoever buys it from you has to be tied to some level.
Buys it.
Right, I don't see that as a major.
I mean, it sounds good.
Yeah,
It doesn't
whoever buys
sound,
it, not-
doesn't sound capitalistic, but
Alright,
yeah.
I raised my hand,
Yeah.
I think like to that point, if you're selling the land rights from one location to another, it's not saying that the land rights of the landmark are affordable, it's saying that basically, if someone transfers all of the land rights for one parcel of land to another, you could build something crazy and that should have some kind of.
Can I just say one thing to that?
Right.
When you put that on those extra rights before they're sold, the person selling them is now gonna lose value on those, because whoever's buying it isn't gonna pay the same price. If I was buying it, I wouldn't pay the same price,
Right.
knowing that those square footage I bought has to
Right.
also go
Right.
to,
Right,
affordable
but a
housing.
potential buyer might pay less for it, but he'll pay less because he's tied into an
Right, but now
affordable.
you're hurting the original owner of the property.
But this is
Not-
the owner whose landmark who can't transfer the rights anyway, he's being allowed to transfer them.
So Jessica, if I may,
Okay.
you can only transfer, development rights from landmarks to a development site up to 20% of the receiving site's FAR.
Okay,
So there's a kind of cap, so they can't go too crazy.
okay.
They learn from the mistake of that big word. I know what
hope so.
I'm talking about.
That's true.
But I'm a capitalist with that. It's up to you guys. Like, if you wanna play, soul players, so many licenses. You know, it's honestly, seriously, if you all feel that that should be there, Beverly, and
Well,
then put it, craft it,
Okay.
draft it.
not a planner, but I was just thinking that if they wanna sell something where the community had to have their input, make it a landmark anyway. You know, I was just wondering whether or not that would be possible for them to consider, affordable housing, because everything that I've read or heard and listened to, affordability is not in here at all. It's just not there. And that's supposed to be the most important thing, or what's bothering the city now is affordability. We haven't even talked about buildings that's vacant, or, there's thousands of units that's not even being utilized. There's nothing even in preservation for this, to fix anything. And if people are moving because they can't afford, affordability is not covered in this.
Can you summarize what we've heard so far?
Yeah,
Unless they're.
that's, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just.
I didn't see it. Is it still to this conversation
Yes.
about transfer? So we have one meeting, guys, that we're all on point, it's already 9:15, we're past, but I didn't. Yeah, Jessica.
Specifically with regard to the landmark transfer of development rights, landmarks are historically inequitable where they're located and the demographics of what's around them. It's bad to see Cranston here, but it's, the economics of preservation, asking for affordable housing, in transferring landmark development rights, it doesn't help the owner, but there's often nonprofits that own landmarks, so, from a principal perspective, I would agree that it's a good recommendation to make. I don't know whether it gets, adopted or considered. But I think as a position, and board that I understand advocates fiercely for
affordable housing. It's an equity opportunity to be able to say that when you get this, you know, we want consideration for that. So I don't know whether, because there's not total agreement, whether it needs to be kind of voted on or what, but I think it would be good to include for whatever number Terry needs.
I was just gonna summarize all the things that we've heard, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, because I just translated it directly into our. So here, I have, so far for any modifications, I have under number 5 for universal affordable preference. UIP to be mandatory, engaged community development agreements. Is that what you said, Jessica Morris?
No,
What did you say?
I was said it to my community benefit agreements. I'll put it in some language. I'm very sorry. I have a
It's okay.
disability and can't do it while we're live in the meeting.
No, and on top of that, we already said that we were gonna do that, so Nelson send it to Jessica, thank you for the efforts.
I just
I'll
want to make
double
sure
check
we're,
it.
yeah, we're
You're on
all on the
task.
same page.
You're
We
on
said
task.
require affordability for conversion of non-residential buildings to housing. We said require affordability for campus infill. And then for 14 landmark transferable development rights, we said require CB input, require affordability. I just want to make sure that was all accurate.
Sounds good to me.
We said last week. Why don't we just? I think that we should draft it, bring it out on Friday, and if there's contention, we'll have a further conversation with the full board.
Sorry, last question. Are there others that require CB input? That was a universal suggestion that you made. So the only
100%.
one we have it under is number 14.
I will put that in every single one.
Yeah.
There's more.
I'm gonna put that in every.
You know, offhand,
So,
there's one.
well, landmark transfer the railroad right away.
Right.
And then city council is 14, which was, is legally the special permit, which is the landmark transportation development rights, the railway.
Well, I mean, so there was a special permit for campus infill, that would be eliminated,
Right.
with this.
Thanks for the positive.
Well.
That's it.
Thank you, Jordan. Well, listen, we're gonna double check. I don't wanna put anybody on the spot.
Thank you.
That's to go get us to write up on the CBA before Friday. No, so we have an idea of what your seventh will get us before Friday. If someone who's only agreed or we agree with the committee, we will entertain the landmark transfer. The mandatory housing, housing advocates. Anything else? All right, great. Before we move on, I want my last item. $500.
Motion to provide $500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Abstentions? None. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Great job, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for the recommendation. See you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jose.
And
Derek, we had a conversation.
I had, do you know when you get? Oh, I haven't heard it. Always welcome to Landmark. It's a spirited discussion
Not
here,
ready.
so.